Onion Cycles podcast is about thought provoking, emotion evoking, action driven, step by step guidance to explore the unique, glorious, and wonderful ocean of your being. Because healing is a multi layered process of getting to know oneself. Become the self empowered empiric researcher by discovering the unique layers of your existence. With your host, Nadine Alma, welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast. Hello and welcome back, my beloved healing fellow onions. Oh my goodness, what a month it has been with our 4 Bodies series coming to a close today. If you are new to this podcast, a warm and heartfelt welcome. I am talking about the last 4 episodes where we covered the 4 lower bodies. And if you're curious and if it feel that this resonates with you, please feel free to go back and listen to the other 3 episodes. And to everyone who stuck around and really dove deep into the exploration of the not so graspable and more intuitive ways of our existence, of our being here on this planet, welcome back and welcome to our last episode in this series. Welcome to Story 19, Episode 20. The 4 Bodies series, the spiritual body. A quick disclaimer to begin with. Technically, there are 7 bodies, and there are people out there who even count more than 7. Apparently, our bodies extend right up even outside of this earth. For our quick understanding, I just wanted to put a disclaimer here that it is quite on purpose that I just covered 4 to start all of us off with. Technically, we start with the physical body, which we did. We then go on to the second one, the emotional body, and the mental body is the third. We covered those 2 as well. And then there is a distinction between the astral body, which is the 4th layer, the etheric body, which is the 5th layer, the spiritual celestial body, the 6th layer, and the causal body, the etheric template, the 7th layer. However, for our purposes, we are sort of comprising 4th to 7th body into spiritual body number 4 in our series, just because you could maybe make a podcast around 10 episodes for each of the bodies individually, but we are going to make this a concise and a precise recantation of the most important things and just feel ourselves slowly into this, as there is a lot to learn, there's a lot to also integrate and feel when it comes to this. So I believe that tipping your toe in and then seeing how it feels, how it resonates, coming back and then from there finding a place of, oh yes, this resonates with me, I want to dive deeper, I'm gonna do my own research on this, I'm gonna go on the internet, go on YouTube, go in the library, go to my spiritual teacher around the corner, ask my Reiki master, ask my acupuncturist, whatever feels resonate with you. Going forward, do your own research. Like we said in the first episode, the 4 C's: stay curious, do your own research, and only take with you what resonates with you. So I invite you to dive deep into this, and I will put in the description box some of my own personal inspirations, especially for this episode, where I got my inspiration from, where I also go to seek out resources, which is first of all the YouTube channel Ascended Masters 101. Then it is a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Another book which is called Disease as a Symbol by Rüdiger Dahlke. And then also Mindfulness with Kieran, which is a YouTube channel. I will put all of this into the description box so you can check it out for yourselves. Would highly recommend you do this. And then there's a special resource that I want to highlight here that is outside of this 4-body series of great value and of great interest if you feel the calling to go there, which is called ascensionglossary.com. And it is basically a Wikipedia page that covers most of spiritual understandings, teachings, and lessons. Now, we have covered 3 bodies: the physical, the mental, and the emotional. So today we are going to focus on the spiritual body. This is because the pathway to health and wellness, the pathway to understanding our true being, and the increase of our self-awareness and the learning to listen and hear what each of the bodies is telling us is the way to balance and is the way to harmony, ease, and flow. And that only happens if we have a grasp and understanding of what it is that influences us on a daily basis. So, the integration and the balance of all 4 of those bodies is the center point of why I started doing this 4-body series. The spiritual body is all about wisdom. It is the higher self, basically the connection to God, source, divinity, universe, all and all others. And please be sure to not confuse this. It is not about culture or religion. It is about your personal connection with what scientists or physicists would call dark matter, like the all of the unseen, like all that is there but hasn't been discovered or named by humans yet. So it is your specific and very unique way of connecting to that. Your inner guidance, some call it gut feeling, some call it intuition. It is also about active imagination. And if it is underdeveloped, then all of the other bodies are affected because we already learned that it is complementary. All of those bodies are complementary to each other. So the interconnectedness is a good way of introducing to us how important it is to, first of all, become aware of those bodies, dissect how the unwell or how an unwell feeling can derive from one of those bodies. And it is also good to have an understanding of how they influence each other. A good example is that the decision to research what food is good for you, and then the actual practice of trying out if that really works for your body, that is your mental body, the research helping your physical body getting to a state of balance. Then, for example, if you are emotionally not restrained, like if you basically act like a 2-year-old or 7-year-old who just feels and lets that come out unfiltered and unhinged, and feels like that is emotional maturity and is just the way that they are wired to be, then that has an effect on your mental body, because your mental body goes astray, leading to coping mechanisms and uh, like binge watching or binge eating or any other addiction that you can think of, because your emotional body is not contained in a healthy way. It just erupts, and whatever feeling comes up and is then translated into an emotion in the body triggers not a thinking about it, like where does it come from, why does it happen. It triggers a coping mechanism. So that is an example of how Spiritual wisdom and the knowledge that everything is interconnected opens you up to the possibility that what triggers you is not something you need to serve yourself to or submit yourself to. On the contrary, what triggers you is a opportunity, is a chance to find out what in the emotional body is fragmented, what wants to be integrated, what wants to be seen, to be heard, and to appreciate it for being there and pointing something out to us. So instead of just becoming unhinged, we could basically, with the influence of a spiritual understanding of the interconnectedness of all these bodies, come to the mental body and then use the mental body of a help to find out why the feeling that is translated into an emotion happened and what it is that the emotion wants us to see. And those are like only two examples. There is like so much uniqueness going on. So that is why I always say your practice is your practice, and no shoe is a fit for all. So please be sure, if you go on this journey to getting to know yourself and getting to know your four different bodies, to do it in a manner that represents how you want to be treated by friends or how you treat your most beloved person. And this brings me to the next thing that I wanted to cover in this episode is how to approach the spiritual body and how to approach everybody, basically, because it is just a subtle feeling. It is something that throughout our lives, and the conditioning and the patterns and the cycles and all of that baggage that burdens us and all of those layers that we put on seldomly ever has the opportunity to come forth and be felt thoroughly and clearly. It is like a muscle. It is like every awareness practice ever. It takes time and it takes patience and it takes conviction, it takes persistence, perseverance, determination, and most of all, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self love. So, addressing each and every one of those bodies might just represent getting to know a totally different person. I want you to sort of visualize this. So, you have four different bodies, right? And say you're 30 years of age. So, your physical body might look like a 30-year-old, but then your emotional body might be a totally different person. If you have never addressed it before, it might just be like a 3-year-old throwing some tantrums in a supermarket because it doesn't get what it wants, or there's an unexpected event happening in your life and you just can't deal with it because you never trained the muscle or developed the mental body to think about it differently and to think about why this is such a huge thing for your emotional body. So then, when your emotional body is a 2-year-old, your mental body might be a 30-year-old because you went to school, you went to college. We in our society are basically mentally very evolved. We are trained to use our mind and let the mind run the show most of the time. But that then leads to an underdeveloped emotional body most of the times because we don't understand why we feel the way we feel. And we have to do a lot of work and invest a lot of patience and energy into why we feel the way we feel because mentally it doesn't make sense. And we covered this in the last episode on the emotional body. If you do inner child work and if you go into the feeling, no matter how uncomfortable it is, if you stay there and ask yourself the questions, how do I feel? Like you name it, you bring it to awareness. And then when did I last feel like that? And then go even further and ask when did I first ever in my life feel like that? what comes up might not be a cognitive citation of the exact circumstance, who was there, what were you dressed in, what did you have for dinner, and how this came to be. It might just be a smell. It might just be a feeling of density in your chest. It might just be something that only your emotional body has felt because, as we talked about it last week, the emotional body is the body how we experience the first 8 years of our life. So it is only natural that if we do inner child work, our inner child communicates with us through the emotional body. So there's even more reason to really train this muscle of getting to know this body. And to come full circle back to the visualization I asked you to do, if your physical body is 30, your mental body is 30, your emotional body might be 3 or 5 or 6 or 7, whatever comes to you. There's no right or wrong, actually. Then just imagine, what age is your spiritual body? And if you decide to go on this journey to get to know your different bodies, you do this by getting quiet and still and asking this body to talk to you, and you talk to them with a very loving and kind way, in a very understanding and inclusive way. And as there is no right or wrong, because it's such a unique practice, you might be surprised of what comes up. If you ask them, what do you need today? What can I do for you today? Or even just before bed, thanking each and every one of your bodies that they were there for you today, that they showed you where you could do some work. It is a intricate and very interwoven approach to seeing yourself in a very new light, because those bodies, like I said, could be full of totally different personalities. I myself remember how often I thought, if I have a multiple personality disorder, because in so many ways I was acting in different modes, on different levels of consciousness, in different emotions and physical states of my body and mind. And I often was like, what is happening to me? Like, one minute I was this, one minute I was that. And part of it was because I had a severely underdeveloped emotional body and wasn't aware that I was just acting like a child. But then also, my physical body was affected by that, my mental body was affected by that, and my spiritual body was affected by that. So I wasn't always able to discern any of them. And in fact, I'm still learning to, when I go into a feeling or when I think about a situation, reflect upon it, to really discern which body is now involved in this the most, and where to approach from, because it is a mess. Like, there is no right way, and there is no one who can really tell you how to do it. There's just all of these suggestions out there that tell you to sit down and develop a relationship with them. So it takes time. And patience is not yet a virtue I have really mastered. So for me personally, it is still an ongoing journey. And I believe that this is the most beautiful way we could even view a integration healing journey, because it is never ending. It is never ending because it is not just about integration. It is not just about healing ourselves. It is an ongoing journey of growth. And growth never stops, because we learned this also in the very first episode. The only constant in life is change. So that then means that the only constant in life is growth, because nothing ever stands still. And if the only constant in life is growth, then that also means that we never will arrive at a finish line. And if we give up this very exhausting cultural view of viewing a journey of getting to know ourselves as something that has an end to it, and lie back and relax into knowing that there is no time limitations, and yes, life ends, but we are eternal beings living a human experience, so therefore we also have time after life, then all of this becomes less exhausting and maybe even exciting. I have found that the more I let go of the notion that I need to compare myself and where I am at my in my life, where I am with my journey compared to others, then a joy comes back and a lightheartedness comes back. And the overall lightness of everything comes back to me as I sort of realize that, oh, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And if I feel too tired to do it today, and even if I feel too tired to do a meditation and feel like I need to go to sleep instead, then that's perfectly fine. Because in the end, it is about how do we cultivate feeling good and healthy and wholesome within ourselves? And that is in balance. That is not an ascetic approach, not a dogmatic approach, not a I tell someone else what to do but don't practice it for myself approach. That is a very unique sort of learning curve. And if we develop that mindset that there is no end and that it is very unique, then we broaden our horizon and our understanding and our compassion and our love eventually for other people's journeys as well. So, if you sit down and get to know your four bodies, please be sure to be very kind to yourself and not ever give up on yourself and what you have put your mind on to doing, because it takes patience and it is an up and down, and it is like our Arts of Love series. Love is also messy, and love isn't something that just is there or isn't. Love can be learned as well. So learning to know our spiritual body, our emotional body, our physical body, our mental body is a beautiful, graceful, and loving, intentional journey towards knowing your full, whole self. So, with all of that said, I wanted to just point out that there are two lovely exercises that are on the weekly worksheet as well. For all of you new out there, this means that feel free to download your free worksheet where I put all the notes to what we discuss in these episodes alongside with some action oriented practices for your week ahead concerning that very topic onto the website www.wonderfinder.org. Free to download. All of you who are constantly listening, you know what I'm talking about. I do hope that these worksheets bring you joy, bring you closer to the topic we discussed, and that it is of service to you in your personal, unique journey, that it supports you in your personal and unique journey. And with that said, let's just discuss four things that you can do to sort of develop the spiritual body and get to know the spiritual body. First of all, something that we never get tired of talking, it is about mindfulness. So, mindfulness practices to quiet the mind and get in touch with that higher frequency, with that higher self of yours, is a lovely way to connect with your spiritual body. It's also about resolving conflicts, not just within yourself and with yourself, but also between yourself and others. Because if you think of it like this, forgiving and letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiving and letting go basically just means that you stop infusing yourself with toxicity and bitterness and poison that only you can feel, because the other person doesn't really feel it. You give it to yourself, you give that energy of low vibration into your own system, and the other person isn't really concerned with it and intensely connected with it as you are. So Resolving conflicts opens up that possibility of integration and healing, and realizing that actually you don't need to subscribe to anyone else who wants to inflict pain on you. You decide yourself if you are wanting and needing to experience that pain, or if you instead focus on yourself and heal and integrate in yourself why this triggers you emotionally, why this hurts you. So, in resolving conflict, you actually do something very beautiful. You get to know yourself better. And viewing it like that is just very empowering and very freeing as well. Obviously, there's also the law of one. And again, I want to point out the ascensionglossary.com as a resource that is absolutely mind blowing for what they can provide in regards to everything spiritual, but also, especially, regarding the law of one. What the law of one means is basically the practice of unity consciousness. We discussed that briefly in the art of love when we talked about universal love, brotherly, sisterly love, meaning that loving is not just about loving yourself, it is not just loving your children, your loved ones, your family, your friends. It's also about the love for others, the love for the earth, the love for nature, the practice of service to others, like some volunteer work, or just helping out a friend when they need it, and you have a full cup and can make them rejoice in the overflow you can give. You can practice consciousness expansion by sort of practicing a responsible co-creatorship, meaning you don't no longer subscribe to putting any negativity out there, and you basically remind yourself whenever you feel triggered by something that this is merely a reflection of something that wants to be reintegrated within yourself, and come back to the point I was making about resolving conflicts, that this is actually a beautiful, wonderful opportunity to get to know yourself better and become whole again. And then obviously, the talking point of talking to yourself, talking to the universe, talking to the source. It doesn't matter, again, cultural or religious differences, whatever you call divine, whatever resonates with you. It doesn't matter what it is you talk to, as long as you cultivate a relationship with that spiritual body, with that greater source, with that infuses all of life and makes life so magical, makes our world so magical and mysterious. So, cultivating a relationship by actually talking to it is a beautiful way of connecting to your spiritual self, your spiritual body. With all that we've covered, I do hope that it is of service to you. I do hope that it supports you in having a better understanding of how those four bodies actually interconnect with your existence, and how they have a huge influence onto each other and onto how you view your reality and how you experience life on this earth, and how your perception is cultivated and navigated by you, through you. So, in understanding or building a thorough understanding of what makes you tick and how your four bodies are developed and where you want to put in more effort or less effort, what sparks and ignites your reason to practice one or train one body muscle more than another gives you an insight on how you are the self empowered creator of your own reality. All of these episodes are barely covering the surface of anything, but what I do hope they do, and especially these last 8 to 10 that we did, where we dove deeper into a certain subject, was to give you tools to give you an understanding, to give you a perception of how much power you actually have, of how much there is beauty and grace within you to put into the outside, to then actually make this person that you want to be a reality, and make this life you want to live a reality, and not compare yourself to everyone else, anyone else around you, because you're unique and you're beautiful. And the time it takes you to get to where you want is the time it exactly needed to be. And there is no right, there is no wrong. We all try to figure it out along the way. No one knows it all. And if they try to persuade you that they do, then they have a lot of work to do on themselves. So, what I'm trying to say here is, please trust yourself, trust the process, and acknowledge and appreciate the wonderful, beautiful, graceful person that you are. Because I do. I do understand you, and I do see you, and I do wholeheartedly love you very much. So thank you for giving me your energy, your life force, your time. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing if you feel like doing so, because as we always say, sharing is caring, and you might be able to put light into another person's life by sharing your own experience with them. And I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful week ahead of you. All the very best. My heart is wide open for you. I send you all the love and light in the world. And see you next time, my beloved healing fellow onions.